In this video, I'm going to share with you the 6 simple hacks to remember everything you read. Now, we all want to read more, we all want to learn more information, but we also want to put it into practice. And when we remember what we read, we can actually start to experience those benefits. Now, I didn't always love reading. When I was growing up, I used to love playing video games, I used to love playing sports, I used to like listening to music and maybe playing around with a few instruments when I could, but I didn't always love reading. And now I realize it's because I was always exposed to lots of fiction books. At school, we were taught to read fiction books. At college, it was all about fiction books. And I realized for me, I really gravitated towards non-fiction books. Autobiographies, biographies, and self-help books. I grew up in a house where my father was either reading the Bhagavad Gita, a book by Deepak Chopra, Jim Rohn, or Tony Robbins, and so I was surrounded by these wisdom books, and that's where I found my love for reading, learning, and growing. One of the things I fell in love with about non-fiction books is that you didn't just read them, you could study them, you could analyze them, you could extrapolate lessons and practical action steps that would transform your life. And I really feel that I've been a student of these books for over the last 16 to 18 years of my life, and they have made a huge difference. Today, I'm going to walk you through 3 of my favorite books and my 6 simple hacks to remember everything you read, put it into practice, and you'll see the benefits. I recall the time I first started taking notes. I'd carry Post-it notes with me everywhere. I'd be sticking them up wherever I go. I would write notes, repeat them, read them, remember them, so that I could constantly refocus my mind onto what mattered most. So the first step is getting all of your study equipment. The amount of times I haven't taken notes because my mind has convinced me that I don't have the right pen, I don't have the right notebook, and all of a sudden now instead of reading, you're scrolling on social media. I really believe that having the perfect notepad with beautiful thick paper so that it can really be something that you can hold on to, think about, scribble over. I love using my stack of Sharpies. You can get them in all the different colors if that's what you need. And of course, you need your trusted Post-it notes. The second thing you need to do is download Blinkist. The reason I say this is that this is an app that I've been using for quite some time now. And in it, you have access to over 4,000 non-fiction books. There have been books that I've read in the past, and then I've typed them in and found that they're also on this app. What I love about this app is that it presents every book in what they call blinks, which are these short snippets so you can understand a book in less time before you dive in. You can understand the key ideologies and principles and ideas before you go deep. The reason why this is so useful is that when you're reading a book, it can often feel like a journey and you may get lost on a page. Blinkist allows you to feel like you have a map that's guiding you through the book, especially if you're like me and you want to study and apply these principles. Once you've downloaded the app, you're ready to be introduced to my 3 favorite note-taking methodologies that I'm going to share with you now. So here is a traditional mind map. I'm writing the name of the book right in the middle of the page, big, bold, exciting. Thinking Fast and Slow by one of my favorite authors, Daniel Kahneman. This is without a doubt one of my favorite books, and when I searched and found it on Blinkist, it made me even more happy to be able to dive back into this book that I read quite a while ago. Now what I do from here is that Blinkist shows that this book has 11 blinks. Now if you look at the real book, you'll actually find there are many more chapters, and some people may even find it overwhelming. So using the blinks, all you want to do is draw a line outwards and write down the titles or the themes of each of the blinks. Read the blinks, it will only take a couple of minutes, and then write down the title. So as you can see here, we have laziness, autopilot, snap judgments, heuristics, statistics, past imperfect, chances, not robots, mind over matter, gut feeling, and false images. Now, when I'm reading through the book, and I'm spotting these themes, I'm then starting to write notes underneath them so that I'm actually adding and enhancing my knowledge of that key area inside the book. So before, when you'd have to try and find the key areas, Blinkist is making it easy for you to know which ones are the ones to focus on, and now you're just extending your knowledge of laziness. You're understanding more about the two systems that Daniel Kahneman presents. That's going to help you remember what you've read, because you can go back to this mind map at any time and find the theme and the point that stood out to you most about that area. My second favorite note-taking methodology to help you remember everything you read is called the 3 Ps model. It's person, principle, and practical application. I absolutely love reading biographies and autobiographies. One of my favorite biographies is by Walter Isaacson, and it's Steve Jobs' biography. If you haven't read it, you have to go and check it out. And again, when I typed it on Blinkist, I was so happy to see that there's such an incredible breakdown of one of my favorite books. The 3 Ps methodology is fantastic for biographies and autobiographies because it helps you learn from people. I think it's so important to learn from the lives of people that inspire us, the people that we admire, the people that we're intrigued by, because guess what? At one point, you're going to fail just like them, and then you can think about what they did. At one point, you're going to have things happen to you that you didn't plan for, and you'll need to know how to deal with uncertainty and discomfort just like they did. So in this methodology, what you want to write down first is the person who's being affected. Blinkist does a great job with biographies by introducing you to the stories inside the sections and chapters that really stand out. As you can see here, I picked out one of the main sections where a handyman father and a prankster best friend actually introduced Steve Jobs to what becomes one of the biggest parts of his careers. I then go on to track the principle. What is the principle I can learn from this? That's the question I ask myself, and I realize that the principle I can learn is you can learn from anyone and everyone. That anyone in your life, whether it's someone you expect to learn from or whether it's someone that's least expected to learn from, there is still some wisdom within them. I then ask myself, how can I turn this into a practical step that I can actually live by? So I ask myself the question, who in your circle could you learn from that you're not learning from yet? Who have I not approached? Who have I forgotten about? Who do my parents know? Who do my friends know that would be really curious to understand more deeply? On the second line, you can see how I focused in on one of my favorite parts of Steve Jobs' journey, which is his spiritual seeking path. Now, when you read the book, you'll hear some amazing stories about his interactions with monasteries, interactions with spiritual people. And so I thought this is a really important point that I'd like to highlight. So the person he's connecting with is spiritual people. The second area is the principle that I learned from this. And this is truly something I've learned from studying the lives of Steve Jobs, that he was able to bring together spirituality and strategy. He was able to bring together these seemingly opposite areas and paradoxical elements to actually create an impact. He brought together art and engineering. He brought together calligraphy and computers. Who would have ever thought that those two things belonged? So then after understanding the principle, I ask myself, what is the practical application for this? In other words, how do I actually live this? And the answer is simple. It's asking the question, how do I add spirituality to my work? Or how do I look at the opposite of what I think my work is about to find new inspiration? And on the final line, there's a story about Steve Jobs himself and how he discovered the name Apple when he was visiting a farm. This was such a revelation because we often wonder where these names come from. And when I discovered that by looking through the app, I was reading the section and I realized that the principle here was travel, being able to explore new things. Now, when we hear about travel, we often think we have to go somewhere exotic, somewhere far, somewhere where we can discover a new culture, a new tribe, a new language. Steve Jobs found the name at an apple farm. So the practical application is looking on the map of your area, maybe even just randomly taking a Sharpie and picking a point and going, where's somewhere near me that I haven't visited yet? My wife and I did this recently where we went to a place called Temecula. Now, when I told my family and friends in the LA area that I was going to Temecula, they were like, why are you going to Temecula? Supposedly they didn't know why anyone would visit there. Me and my wife and our friends that we went with had the best time. We e-biked around for around 2 hours, we went to an olive oil tasting, and even went on a hot air balloon ride. It was an amazing experience, and it was only an hour-and-a-half drive away from where we live. And who would have thought that we discovered something new there? That's how I turn a person's experience into a principle and into a practical application. I then write the practical application onto Post-it notes and stick them at different places around my home so that I can remember what I've read and put it into practice in my life. And that's what you'll find. When what you read transforms the way you live, you're truly remembering it. It's not just a mental activity of memory. It's a thing about your energy. It's how you're actually living that matters. The final methodology on how to remember everything you've read is almost like a SWOT analysis, a strengths and opportunities analysis. And this works best for books that have 4 key areas to look in. So I use this for a book called Wherever You Go, There You Are. It's a classic, a must read. And mindfulness and meditation are beautifully explained in this book and how they differ. What I also loved is that this book shared the opportunities of how to bring mindfulness and meditation into my life and the weaknesses or the challenges that might arise. So if you're looking at a book that's going to give you habits or tactics to use, this is a great methodology. I really hope that you're going to try out one of these 3 methodologies to help you remember everything you've read. But here's my last idea that I want to share with you. Share what you're learning. If you read something that moved you, tell a friend. If you heard something that had an impact on you, tell a friend. When you share and repeat these lessons, you remember them, and most importantly, you're reminded to live them. This video was brought to you by Blinkist. Right now, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/JShetty to start your free 7-day trial and get 25% off a Blinkist premium membership. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist.com/JShetty to get a 25% off and a 7-day free trial. And I'm so excited for you to remember everything you read.